Welcome to the Warcraft Movie Presentation Panel. Your panelists are Duncan Jones, Rob Pardo, Chris Metzen, Bill Westenhofer, and Nick Carpenter.
What up, Blizzcon?
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Warcraft Movie Panel. So we did this, I think 3 years ago we did something like this. But this time I think it's going to be 10 times as exciting because we actually have a release date for the movie. So I want to introduce everyone on the panel. So to my right is Duncan Jones. He is the director for the Warcraft movie. He's directed a couple really awesome films, if you guys have seen Moon or Source Code. And more importantly, to you guys, I think Duncan has been playing Warcraft games since Warcraft 1, played Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, World of Warcraft, even played Lost Vikings.
Amiga!
I think you guys all know the gentleman to my left, which is Chris Metzen, the guy in charge of all lore and story and franchise direction in Blizzard, and pretty much just the soul of Blizzard. So he'll be able to talk a lot more about the movie and what we've been trying to do with it. And then to his left is Bill Westenhofer. Bill is the special effects supervisor for the film. He's actually won the Oscar twice for Life of Pi and The Golden Compass. But really, I don't think you guys should care about that. What's really important is that he has a level 90 Alliance mage and several other
A lot of horde out there, I hear.
Horde you out there?
And then to Bill's left is Nick Carpenter. Nick is our VP of Cinematics, and he's really the guy that's responsible for all the awesome Blizzard films. Did you guys see the Heroes of the Storm cinematic yesterday? Well, that is the work of Nick and his talented department. So thank you all for coming. And what I want to do, I'm going to kind of moderate the panel and kind of serve up questions to these guys and just try to get them to talk as much as possible. The one thing I will kind of put out there as a disclaimer is we're still over 2 years away from the movie actually being released, and we haven't even started filming yet. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today is really these guys' background, you know, kind of what they've been doing with trying to do all the pre-production on the movie. But there's really not a ton of brand new information that we can reveal because they haven't even started marketing the film yet, so we got a ways to go. All right, with all that out of the way, maybe Duncan, you can kind of start and just talk a little bit about why you like the Warcraft franchise, why you decided to take this on.
Yeah, absolutely. Whoa, I'm loud. I was, I've been playing games for a while and used to be involved in another franchise playing it, Ultima Online. I started a clan for that, played that for a few years as a beta tester, and then our whole clan kind of migrated over to Warcraft, World of Warcraft when that came out, and was a huge fan of the game, playing it for a couple of years before I started, getting very busy with my first feature film, Moon. And after Moon, I did Source Code. After Source Code, I was kind of really at a place where I had the opportunity to do a couple of different franchise films, but I was already aware that Warcraft was out there and that they were trying to make it into a movie, and it had been taking a little bit of time. And I constantly, my producing partner and I had kept on checking in with the production to find out, what's going on with it. When's it going to happen? Is it going to happen? Is there, any chance? Maybe I can get involved. And fortunately, or unfortunately for other people, but fortunately for me, the opportunity arose, and I was given the opportunity to read the script. that was available at that time. And I was like, oh, this is so great, but...
We say that all the time too.
And it was you know, I wanted it to be the Warcraft that in my heart I felt, you know, the film deserved to be. And at that time it was very human-centric, very alliance-centric. And I thought, no, you know, if we're going to make this into a movie, it's got to be what the original Warcrafts always were, which is you can be a hero no matter what side you're on, and it's about both sides. It's got to be red and blue.
Well, I mean, on that point, you know, the first day we met, we had been working through kind of versions of the story for a very long time, which you guys know, and having that balance represented was something that was very important to us. And in certain iterations of the stories we had you know, the first day we met Duncan, he was just like, this has to happen. And we had kind of been told from time to time, like, it's too much. You know, audiences really want to focus on one or another. And we had just done this dance, and the first day we met this guy, it's just like, it's got to be this. And we're like, oh, yes.
Well, and the funny thing about that, too, was just that I think we had always wanted to see, you know, that other side, the orcs, brought much more forward. Yeah. And, you know, it always felt like, oh, the audience doesn't really want that. And lo and behold, you know, Duncan came in and pitched to us, and he was worried that we weren't going to go for it. You know, he was like coming in going, I don't know if the Blizzard guys are going to like my pitch, going to like the way we're going with it. And then I think just me and Chris
we're looking at each other across the table going, is this happening?
And then another thing, too, which I think got us really excited to work with Duncan was, you know, you'd been turning down other films. Like, you know, after you did Source Code, you know, I think you had a lot of people knocking on your door and really wanted you to work on other films, and you kept on holding out.
You know, there was opportunities, but it's so easy to get sucked into franchises that maybe you don't have the connection to. And I think for me, Warcraft was an opportunity to be involved in something where I actually really gave a shit. You know, and I really wanted it to be what I had loved when I was playing it. So that, yeah, and you know, about that pitch, I mean, the fact that we were going to try and make sure that if we were going to do this as a film, we needed to really make sure that our audience, beyond, you know, people who know Warcraft, everyone understood that if you're, you know, the orc heroes, you have to feel as empathetic and care about them and their situation and why they're doing what they're doing as you do about any of the human beings.
Well, I think that's one of the things that makes Warcraft a lot more unique and separated from something like Lord of the Rings, right? You know, it's the orcs, the red side, they're not just bad guys. You know, they are characters and they have a viewpoint.
Sound.
Hold on, one at a time.
Sound. Yeah. All right. So, Bill, maybe you can talk a little bit about how you got started working with Warcraft and what you know, kind of your play experience.
Sure. Can you hear me? Is that better? So this was interesting. I'll start for a second with when I interviewed for this job. I sat down, and the very first thing that the producers asked me is if I knew anything about the Warcraft universe. And I just about spit up my coffee because I started playing Warcraft in the alpha test way back in 2004. In fact, it became so obsessive, I was on the set of Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, and I had to dedicate a couple hours to make sure I got, you know, can keep going and get my character leveled and get the dungeon run in. I even, you got to do what you got to do, right? I was working on Golden Compass, and that was in London, and my guild was back here in the States, so I did get up at 2 in the morning a couple times to do a Blackwing Lair run. So with that point, I want to you know, emphasize the fact, you know, with the people who are working on this film, these are Warcraft fans who are making this, and we're going to make sure that it's really special and that everyone's proud of what they have to see. So specifically for the characters in the film, we're doing live action with CGI. It's an extremely complex endeavor for the visual effects side. A lot of times I liken this to Avatar meets Game of Thrones in terms of the level of complexity of what we're doing. We are using real actors for the orcs. The orcs are going to be as emotive, and like Duncan said, you have to believe them as much as any human character. So we're striving incredibly hard with minute detail to make them as real as possible. This is going to be gritty and real. The guys get dirty. There's, you're down with the characters when they're fighting, but we are dedicating this, and in fact, we have an incredible team at Industrial Light and Magic who is working on the orcs for us. So it's in good hands, and you all will be very proud of it.
So maybe Duncan and Chris, you guys can talk a little bit more about kind of trying to adapt the lore and the storyline and really make it feel like an authentic Warcraft movie.
I mean, I think one of the real difficult decisions we had was what part of the lore to focus in on. You guys have achieved such a huge, vast timeline and so many different stories and memorable characters. It was really about picking what worked for us, and also what really got to the root of what Warcraft is and where it came from, without saying too much.
Oh boy, this feels like quicksand. Right. Because we had been working on multiple iterations of a story, for the years, coming up before we had met, and it was kind of this tap dance between, you focus on, all these different races. Each faction really has a number of races with distinct stories, and ultimately the community, everyone wants to see their thing. Like where's my troll movie? And we sit and go, troll movie, trip out. You're really good. I don't know. So it was kind of a process of kind of honing in on what are the themes that are the most universal, right? If it's going to be difficult to construct a story that really sings to everybody's specific faction or racial reality, the trick was can we find that perfect touch point that really has the broadest Warcraft themes that I think everybody gets.
Well, like one of the things that I think we talk a lot about is that Warcraft is such a huge franchise that it's almost like, where do you shine the spotlight? Because there's really no way that you can translate what everyone here has experienced in the game into a single movie. So a lot is figuring out which part of it you want to do, and also what characters do you want to bring forward, because aren't movies a lot more about kind of the characters rather than about the world?
And how much time do you spend in the Lion's Pride?
Exactly.
A lot.
So one of the things I think is going to be pretty exciting to people here, though, is maybe talking a little bit about the locations, and the places that we're going to be able to show within the movie itself.
Well, I mean, this seems like an opportunity. We have a couple of pieces of very early concept artwork that we could show, if you're interested in that.
Do you guys want to see some concept art?
Pushing the magic button. See if that works.
Uh-oh. There we go.
So we got, is that Draenor? Oh yeah, fantastic. So this is like an early piece of Draenor. And, again, one of the things that we needed to work out is just where the story takes place and how much of it takes place in each location in order to really give a sense of the grandness and scale of the world. This is an environment, obviously, we felt very passionately about making sure was in there. Anyone recognize that? So this is another piece. This is Dalaran. One of the things we should really mention also is the amazing team that we have around us working with us on the film. The production designer on the film is Gavin Bouquet, who worked on a number of different Star Wars films, ironically.
Yes, Star Wars.
Star Wars. And then we've been working with also with Blizzard's artists as well. There's a number of artists we've been working with from you guys. Yes.
Nick's team has been great, helping and bringing a lot of the DNA from Warcraft, and in particular, Wei Wang has lent a hand on designing creatures for us, and it's really incredible to see the detail and the work. You're going to see it's as if this world existed first, and what you've been seeing all along is an interpretation, and you're going to see a real orc, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we've had a chance to work pretty closely with you guys, and really realize Duncan's vision. And you guys, from what I've seen, it's not going to disappoint. It looks like a Warcraft feature film, and it's mind-blowing.
That's a little bit of Iron Forge.
It strikes me that one of the really interesting things to have watched over the past 6 months, as Duncan's team has been doing a lot of design, and I've had a little bit more visibility into what Nick's group has been doing. It strikes me that when we're just doing this work, let's say we're building an expansion set or we're just working on the game, it's like so often we'll have a vision, we'll have an idea like Dalaran or Ironforge or any of these spaces. And when you're building it for purposes of a video game, you're kind of constricted by how many polygons you can put into a scene, how you block a scene, player traffic and flow through a city. Like there's so many design constraints, or design strengths really, but that kind of demand things of your vision. Oh, we gotta put a window here, we gotta take out this hallway and do this, and it's kind of an exacting science. So one of the really fun things about watching this production process go has been that these guys are kind of freed to kind of capture the vibe of these areas, but kind of explode it out a little bit. Make these areas feel more cinematic. Make them feel a little more lived in, a little more grand than what we can literally do in the game. Like that, Alliance?
And
I feel like home?
And not to make you all jealous, but I did have a little geek out moment when I realized that I was actually going to be standing in Ironforge and Warcraft in Stormwind. So that I'm pretty excited about.
I mean, I think one of the most fun things for us about working on a film like this at the scale we're doing it at is we actually get to physically build a lot of locations in the film. So
you mentioned Lions Pride Inn, so everyone on the Alliance side, one of the first things they saw was the inn in Goldshire.
You can just imagine, what our production parties are going to be like and where they're going to be.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's even that. It's like, looking at a lot of these big marquee areas, which is super exciting. But just things like, no, we're gonna plant a shot at the Lions Pride Inn. I was just like, it's like I've almost spent more time, well, I hate to say this, but like in Goldshire, right? After X number of characters over the years, but it's just so familiar, right? Yeah. It's just the grassroots of Warcraft, and there's obviously places like that all over the world, but I love that this potentially takes us to kind of more of the intimate spots as well that are almost as familiar, right? Well, the one thing, I don't know if we've ever said this before, guys, but I think you will all agree, is that when we talk about Warcraft, we talk about this big franchise, and someone's rocking in the other hall. We talk about this thing, and you talk about the main characters or the plot lines or some of the big chapters that have come before. But the trick is, you know what character is most famous in World of Warcraft to all of us? Hogger. The character that is most famous is the world itself. You might have met Thrall, and you might have fought the Lich King, and you may have found Hogger over there in Elwyn, but I guarantee you we've all spent X number of hours in the Barrens and Westfall, and it's almost like the placement of the trees and the roads and the vibe and the color palettes. It's actually, most of the engagement we've had is literally in the world itself, and that's been a really major value of ours is in translating to film and making this thing cinematic, it's finding those values. Almost like, you guys remember yesterday we were talking about like the player models, like don't break it, right? It's the point of maximum familiarity. Sure, you can reanimate everything, and sure, you can blow the polygons out, but that's not where the flavor is. It's not where our hearts are, or the visuals that we're so connected to. So that value is critically important, that we kind of pull out the nuances of these areas with maximum familiarity. It just feels right, even though it's a little grander for storytelling purposes.
So Duncan, like you kind of mentioned one of the other people that is not on stage that's been working on the film, but maybe you can kind of tell the audience here about some of the other people that are working on the film, and kind of reassure them that Warcraft's in good hands.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the people that I wanted to mention is Maez Rubio, who's doing our wardrobe and costume design, and that has become an incredibly important and interesting puzzle for us to solve, because obviously half of our cast is live action and real, and that's a very traditional route. But with half of our cast being virtual, being performed by actors but using motion capture technology, it's like how do you actually approach that as far as how you costume those characters? So we're actually, even though they're not going to be performing in the costumes, we actually have to have them for photographic references, and so that we can actually see on camera what those costumes look like, how they move, how gravity affects them. So we've actually started making orc costumes at full scale, which are
really
incredible.
Great, yeah.
and Maez worked on Avatar and also on Apocalypto as well. So I think for what we're trying to do, she was just the perfect person for that.
It just shows that that's the level of detail that we're after and seeking to put into this, getting down to how a rivet attaches and how the leather straps from a pauldron are weaved in. And by building it real, we're getting that stuff as detailed and interesting as possible.
So it's probably safe to say that Maez would always win the costume contest year over year.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Other people I'm working with is Paul Hirsch is the editor that I worked with on Source Code, and has an amazing body of work. He worked on Empire Strikes Back, won an Oscar on Ray. He did Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Just a crazy, eclectic body of work. He's an institution in the industry, and an amazing editor.
Cool. Maybe Bill and Nick, you guys can maybe talk a little bit about what it's like to try to translate Warcraft into visuals. I know you talked about it a little bit, but obviously it's going to be a real big challenge to make orcs and do orcs that have acting, how you take these goofy, cartoony-looking characters that we create and make them photorealistic, but still Warcraft.
Well, I mean, funny enough, in the cinematics department, we do this all the time. We work very closely with the game teams and try to translate that into a much higher resolution space. And so when we had a chance to be a part of this, the discipline is very similar, except they're just going so much further. And, I mean, like Chris was saying, we've seen all these spaces. We'll make a concept, I'm like, wow, we're seeing it from game and then actually translate to concept, and then what these guys are going to do with it, it's absolutely amazing. And, I can't tell you guys enough, it's absolutely in the right hands. Trust this guy, he's gonna make an amazing film.
It's fun. It's we want to do it as much justice as possible, and we're pushing the technology. We're doing on-set motion capture, a lot of technical jargon, but it's the kind of thing that we're really the orcs aren't going to be. They're not monsters. They're really going to act. They're going to have personalities. And then the level of detail is we'll go to lengths to build a real costume. We'll build full-size lighting maquettes just to get all the details just right.
And there's a constantly moving frontier, I think, on that technology as well. Exactly. And you see it from the Planet of the Apes movies to Avatar earlier on, and what they did with Mark Ruffalo in the Hulk as the Hulk in the Avengers movie.
Absolutely.
In fact, it's we're working with the same team.
Yes.
That did the Hulk on the ILM movie.
Right.
And we're benefiting, I think, from the fact that we're working with people in Alex Gartner and Chuck Roven, who Chuck Roven, who worked on the Batman movies, was producing those, and Legendary and that team, who've actually given us the support to make a film the way we think it needs to be made.
Absolutely. In the environments as well, where what you're going to see, the concept art, it's going to look, you'll recognize it as the environment, but it's going to look completely real. If we're doing Elwyn Forest, there's trees, and perhaps the size of the trees and the distribution are something you might not see in this world, but the fine detail is something that looks completely photographic. So it's that kind of thing. That's how we're trying to push a realistic, amazing vision of what you've seen in the games and what you're familiar with.
Yeah, just keeping the spirit, and when you guys go through this experience, it's going to feel like you're living in this world. Like he was just saying with the trees, they talk about the bark, and we look at in-game screenshots, and we're like, how do we translate that into physical prop? And down to the roots and the leaves, you guys. Like, when we talk about some of these spaces, these guys dig super deep.
And there have been times where, as a technical consultant, I've had to log in my character and go fly over to Dalaran to get some screenshots. But it's good to be a mage. You can port around.
The other thing, like Bill, he's such a fan. Like every day, like when we're working things out, he'll be like, it'd be really cool. This little Easter egg right here. And I'm like, I don't know if anyone's gonna see it. He's like, dude, I got this. And so we're always chasing these little things. You guys, they are putting so much cool little details.
Pay close attention to everything.
Yeah, I think that's always been one of the ambitions is to strike it on a level where people can enjoy the film who don't know everything about the world, but at the same time have enough things in there, in the subtext and in the environment, and even some of the storylines where you know more than some of the audience will know. So you're going to get even more out of it than what's there for everyone else.
So I think one of the challenging things with taking franchises like this into movies is, how do you partner with a franchise holder? In our case, obviously us. And I think what Legendary has done a great job is that they've always kept us very collaborative. But I thought it might be good to hear from you guys about, working with Blizzard and where the benefit of the collaboration's been and how involved we've been.
Well, to go back a little bit to what Chris was saying, I think it was kismet when we first started talking and I gave you my pitch. The relief that that's where you had hoped it was going anyway was really what made it feel like, oh, okay, this is home. This is going to work out all right. I'm not going to be fighting my way through this. We were all kind of already seeing it in the same direction.
Yeah, it was definitely a love connection, like immediately. Like it was good. It was a happy day.
And I think kind of the same things happened on the art side, right, Bill?
You get, when we talk about designing a character, to have, support from designers who have that in their DNA and know it's a second hand. It just gets that essence of Warcraft without having, automatically in the first go.
And it goes both ways. When we work with dev teams internally, everybody gets the Blizzard style, and then we all have this very specific idea of what we want to create. These guys are exactly the same. They plugged right in day one, and we've been running ever since.
It's good to have that mindset, because we do have to work out things. Like Duncan said, we have live action, we have people, and we have live action concerns where, the Warcraft style, if you're going to try to reach over your head to grab something, you have this pauldron that's knocking you in the side of the head. Those are things that we have to work out.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I'm here. Always like, make the shoulder pad bigger, bigger, and they're just like,
he's going to fall over.
This is not going to work, Nick. I'm like, not my problem.
Right.
So, what do you think is going to be the most challenging part of this, trying to put this whole thing together?
Well, we're at the exciting time where we can really see the shooting date coming up on us now. So it's really about just integrating all of these amazing people who are working together, and making sure that we all kind of hit the mark at the same time, and we're all going at speed. A couple of people I also needed to mention is Simon Duggan, who's our cinematographer, who did iRobot, and also you might know him from Great Gatsby as well. And those are both films where there are so many technical layers to the filmmaking. To me, it was just really important to surround myself with people who understood the intricacies of integrating all of those different layers and making sure that everything that Bill's got to do fits in with everything that Gavin's got to do and all these other departments, because it is an epic quest to get this film right.
It's very challenging on the technical side. When we're done, we leave the stage. Quite often, all you're going to see is a piece of set with a bunch of blue screen, a couple of humans swinging swords at guys in pajamas with little lights on them. So that's got to be translated, and in order to do that right, we have to plan very well to make sure that the finished product is going to live up to what we want.
Well, and for you, Duncan, I mean, this is the biggest film you've ever made. You know, with Moon being, you know, kind of small, and then Source Code, I know, being bigger. Like, yeah. What is it like for you, kind of making this jump to film of this scale?
It's interesting because you always have the same. You always have the same puzzles to solve. You know, it doesn't matter how big the film gets. It always ends up the, you know, how do I fit this grand ambition into this shape? And what makes it easier or harder is the people that you're working with. And again, we've been incredibly fortunate, and I think, you know, smart in the people that we've surrounded ourselves with, and also being able to work so closely with you guys, because I think, you know, working in parallel like this, it keeps us honest to what it is we're trying to make, and it makes sure that we're always going to, you know, go for broke and make sure that we make this a film that reflects that world. We can't, you know, detour too far, because, you know, then we're not addressing, you know, what the goal of the film. So I think that's been great, actually, because in a way it kind of keeps us anchored and makes sure that we're making the film that you guys want, and I think what you guys want as well.
Cool. So, yeah, I think we've asked most of the questions that we had up here for the panel, and we're going to ask some questions out to let you guys ask a few questions of the audience. But I kind of need your guys' help a little bit, because I've been kind of arguing with these guys backstage and trying to get them to talk a little bit more about what's coming out, what's going to be in the film. Do you guys want to hear any more actual details about what's going to be in the movie? So
it's 2 years away. It's 2 years.
I know, but you're up on Twitter all the time, so I figure you know, you got to be able to like reveal some stuff. And you know, you did something special for Comic-Con, and I think Blizzcon is more important than Comic-Con. Because I just feel like, you know, this is where it all came from. Comic-Con's just a bunch of posers compared to the Blizzcon audience. So I really need your guys' help. I need you guys to really talk Duncan into this, and then when all the legendary PR people rush the stage, I need you to tackle them.
There are some producers in the front. I'll ask them if give them something. Yeah. I mean, it's not fair. We have to give them something.
Yeah, I know, exactly, right?
I could get fired. I need to just make sure I'm not going to get fired.
Get fired. Don't get fired. Don't get fired.
No one's run on yet. No one's run on stage yet. Okay, well can we just mention, are they out in the front now?
Well,
can we just mention just a couple of characters? Just a couple of character names. All right, so, you know, we've been, you know, obviously we sort of talked our way around it, trying to not mention any names, but it is Orcs versus Humans, obviously, and for us, I think the story that was most important to tell was an origin story of that first contact. So for us, for me, and I think you guys agreed, the story to tell was between Lothar and Durotan. That was the story to get into. And I would imagine most of you know your lore and can kind of know where this is going. But it's, you know, I think if I stick with that, those are the two guys. I would say that again, talking about the amazing input that, you know, and working with Blizzard, some of the stuff that Wei did for Durotan, some of the artwork is just mind-blowingly good. And it's been hard to find an actor who looks like Durotan. Every time I meet someone, I grab their face and I just kind of squish it around a little bit. Yeah, I can kind of see you.
Yeah, quite often you get a concept design and then you want to work the actor into that. Wei's artwork is so great.
Yeah, we're going to make it the other way around.
Makes you want to think the other way around.
So thank you for outing that to everybody. I think everyone really appreciates that. And hopefully everyone can be on the internet pleading that Duncan does not get fired. It'd be nice if we could keep him on the film. But maybe, Chris, do you want to talk a little about Durotan and Lothar and kind of their back lore for maybe the people that don't know much
But
about
now I'm worried about getting fired. So it's, how do you do that without saying too much? I would say without saying too much, I would say for you guys who are dialed in with the lore, you might immediately go like, huh? Wait a minute, did Lothar ever meet Durotan? Because we haven't actually covered that in the deep lore. But the shape of the vision that Duncan's been playing with is just, yeah, these guys were tailor-made for each other. And they both represent ideals that are the highest ideals for each of these races. You know, Lothar for his soldiery and his loyalty and his, you know, this guy that has been burdened with protecting his kingdom, Stormwind, for a very long time, potentially throughout a time of peace. And you have Durotan, who classically, while we technically in the RTS games back in the day didn't really see him, he's a character that was introduced a little later, but Durotan as well really represents kind of the highest ideals of the orcs when they are not crazy. You know, that family and clan, you know, are the highest ideals. This is a guy that believes in his people, that believes in their future, and is ultimately horrified by the idea of them getting into some dark, cursed areas. And ultimately, again, without totally spilling the beans or whatever, both of these men are going to find themselves at this crux point of history, really, and they will be put to the test.
I mean, both of them are protectors. You know, both of them are protectors of their peoples. And I think in an impending war, a situation that you just know is coming and you can't seem to find a way out of it, I think both of them want to do the right thing for the people that they're responsible for.
Well, and I think one of the exciting things about exploring the storyline that we are is that the early games really weren't a great mechanism for telling these stories. So it really allows the movie a lot of flexibility to kind of do the, like you like to always say, the ultimate version of Warcraft history.
Totally. I always go back to, you know, as we're talking about all these ideas, like the Ultimate Spider-Man thing. I don't know if you guys know about the Ultimate line, but it was an opportunity in the comics world for kind of retelling classic stories and really keeping all the details and all the vibe, but just kind of tightening the bolts after years and years worth of fictional development. So kind of working with these two characters and the vector of this story allowed us to kind of really tighten a lot of bolts and tell this thing just in a much tighter way than we had been able to before, you know, through the game series. So it's been an incredibly rewarding process of relooking at these ideas. Can you guys hear me? Is this thing cutting in and out?
Yeah, it's
all good?
I'll just speak louder then.
So, you know, as Duncan was saying earlier, I mean, especially through the character of Durotan, I mean, it's really embodying the nobility and the power and just the huge-heartedness of orcs that are not corrupt. Was really, really a fun thing to see kind of come into play. And boy, I'm struggling to not say anything that would be criminal.
Well, the other thing I think is really interesting when you look at kind of the history of where Warcraft started was those games actually told parallel stories.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so...
The series, yeah, especially the RTS series, had always been very binary, right? You play the human campaign, you can play the orc campaign. And in those early games, they were kind of contiguous, right? So we had to decide, as we started Warcraft 2, who won Warcraft 1, right? Well, you know, the orcs kind of got the better of them that time. And we had to kind of fudge the continuity as it went because they were really built to be one or the other. So kind of looking at this structure, you know, for this film has been really fun. I mean, obviously someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. But in a weird way, it's kind of like, I don't know, everybody loses at least a little bit, right? It's kind of period.
Well, I mean, I think it's a hell of a thing, really, that we're getting the chance to make the movie this way, because it's for any film, any franchise, I think to tell a story where you're really honestly telling it from both sides, especially a war film, it's unusual. And I think the fact that we've been kind of given the opportunity to do that really on a storytelling level is breaking a few barriers in certainly for these kind of for a big film like this. I don't think you're going to see many films that have this kind of structure.
Well, and especially when you're telling it from a side, from what I think a lot of non-geeky moviegoers will view as the monster side.
Yeah.
Right. I think everyone here understands that it's that is not who the orcs are.
Absolutely.
But it's going to be really unique to try to. I don't want to say humanize them, but to really make kind of that broad, empathize with them with a more broad audience. All right, so I'm going to let you guys ask a few questions. Understand that we're probably not going to be able to reveal any more than we've already dragged out of Duncan, but if you guys have questions for anyone on the panel or want to hear more about kind of their history or how to make movies or anything like that, we're going to go ahead and take some questions.
All right, Duncan, first of all, over here. Canucks are going down. I was originally going to ask about what camera you were thinking of shooting this in, but after that revelation, I'm going to ask for a request. Can you blink once for yes, 2 for no, if the movie is going to tie in with the ending of Warlords of Draenor?
I cannot tell you any more than what I've said. But what I will say is that I also cannot tell you where we're going to be shooting the movie, which may be fairly obvious.
Well played.
Giving a shout out to my friends. Now, there are war movies, and then there are war movies. Is this going to be more like something like The Golden Compass or the war scene in Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe? Or is this going to be like The Patriot, Braveheart? I mean, what kind of rating are we looking at?
Gladiator. Really gritty, muddy, nice. Down in the dirt, covered in grime.
Hello. You've talked about the epicness of the world, characters. What about the music? Wait.
That's a very good question.
I mean, I know you guys have some wonderful talent in-house. Is that the route that it's going to go? Or are we going to see something, Zimmer, anything big like that?
It's a very good question, and I think I can't tell you any of the details on the music. But what I can tell you, I think, is as true to the spirit of the world and the characters, I think it's as important that the music also has a presence, because the music is, for the game itself, it envelops you and it's what brings you into the game world, and the music of the film has to be as true to the game as the environment is.
So my question, when I think of humans versus orcs, I think of that traditional cinematic where the infernal comes down and breaks them apart. Now, the armor of the human is very exaggerated, very cool, kind of unrealistic, but I'd love to see that translated to real life. Will you guys be able to keep that Blizzard style intact in the armor?
That has been a huge part of the development and the work that we've been doing together, especially with Nick and the team of artists that they have at Blizzard, is to find that fine line where it's believable and it works in a real-world situation, but it stays true to the scale and the impressiveness, I think, of the game armor.
Yeah. The swords that are being built are the biggest swords that a human can wield, I'll tell you that.
It won't disappoint.
Well, and that's been one of the challenges, though, with the costuming, is like a lot of, I think, our costumes digital characters can wear, but maybe not actual actors.
Yeah, right.
So maybe you can talk.
I can't see out of this damn thing.
You run into little things. There's no scabbards anywhere in World of Warcraft. So when we figure out where a sword's going to go, they don't just hit the Z key and it pops in their hand. So, we have to work out those kind of things.
Blizzard has been really amazing in releasing collector art books and even in bookstores, cinematic art books. Are there any plans for an art book for this movie?
I don't know if there are. There are certainly not plans at this stage, but what I would say is that we are documenting the process as we go along. And the concept artwork that's being made for the film, obviously you've seen 4 pieces, but that's 4 of 4,000. I mean, there's so much artwork behind the scenes that's being generated. I would love to see something at some point come out. I know my beautiful wife is doing a behind-the-scenes photography of all of the construction and of all of the department's work. So I don't know what we'll end up doing, but we've certainly got the assets for it. So hopefully at some point in the future, you know, I would love for that stuff to get released.
Hi, I'm Netherwind from the Alderman server. Audacity is our guild. My question is about the cast. Since you're going to start filming in January, do you have any cast worked out?
Yep. Sure do. Lots of them.
Hi, Warspark, Horde, yeah. My question for you is, I understand you can't reveal that much, but can you cast Chuck Norris?
I think the question is, can I not cast Chuck Norris? He can do anything.
Hi, I'm Peter Yurkowski. I grew up on these games. Are you still casting for these movies? I'm an actor, and I would love to be in this. I mean, I'm going to go there. All these people want to know that, too.
Let me see. I'm trying to think if I can give you some lines. You can try it right now, but oh, that would be giving away too much. I can't do that.
Hello. Oh, my question's about how if you're gonna plan on making it into a trilogy.
Into a trilogy. Well, you know, I think for us right now, it's absolutely about getting this first film right and making sure that we, you know, tell the story that we want to tell. But, you know, let's be honest. If we're gonna do this right and it works out, I think we would all be excited and enthusiastic about continuing the story. It's not like we have a lack of stories to tell, and we certainly have an amazing cast of characters.
It seems to me that we could do a number of trilogies if we really put our minds to it.
Yeah. On movie 7, we'll look back at the initial trilogy and say that.
I was going to say, go see it a couple times.
First of all, for the Alliance. My question is the main thing going to be based on Eastern Kingdom or Draenor?
I would say that the majority of the tale does take place in familiar locales located in what we know as the Eastern Kingdom.
I just heard someone uncock a gun over there in the back. I think you're okay.
We're cool. It's cool. It's cool. Did someone just say the Eastern Kingdoms of Outland? Was that what I heard? That's too clever.
So you've made references to a lot of superhero movies and other nerdy movies, and among those, there tends to be a bit of a lack of representation of strong female characters, and Warcraft notably succeeds in doing that. And you know, you can see you have a fairly mixed audience here, especially for a convention like this. But, I mean, are you planning to cast some of the heroic characters? I know Garona's around here, and Sylvanas, and Jaina, and Terinde. I mean, it just goes on. But so far, you know, everyone mentioned has been male, and yeah.
Well, actually, I think one of the challenges that these guys have had, it's been kind of funny, I think, for especially Chris and I, is that if you look at the lore during that era, it's pretty much a bunch of young white guys, and that's been, I think, one of the challenges that when you're young and you're just kind of making up characters, you're just making up what you know. So what really the movie guys have been saying is, you guys should have more female characters. I think that'd be better for the movie. So that's actually been, Duncan and Bill and the movie guys have really been pushing that quite a bit. And obviously, we're kind of outer reveals today, but it's a huge value for the production and for Duncan himself. And I think you guys are going to be pleased once we finally can reveal a lot more details.
Without revealing too much, I really can't reveal any more names, but I think any of you who know your lore will see that there is definitely the opportunities for some very strong female lead roles in what we're doing. Yep.
Michael Gonzalez, combat vet, Hyjal, and for the Horde. When's the soonest we can see a preview?
That would be very soon. Wait till soon.
I would say come next year.
So probably sometime next year. It's one of those things that they haven't even started filming yet, so that schedule is just not put together yet. And I think a lot of times it's like about a year out from the release they start doing previews and things like that.
I would say that I think next year's BlizzCon panel is going to have a hell of a lot of interesting stuff to show.
There you go. So make sure to come to BlizzCon next year.
Okay. Hey, I'm Narmana of Ouroboros, and I was wondering why you decided to make a movie instead of possibly a TV series, since you have such a big story that's beautiful that you can put into a TV series.
I guess I would answer that these guys have an awful lot on their plate as far as delivering games.
I would say unofficially, like nothing official at all. I'm just riffing here, but like I want one of those too.
I think the other thing too, if you look at when we kind of went down the road, I think it was in 2006 when we decided to do a movie. That was way before like Game of Thrones existed, right? Like I don't think fantasy in TV had been as proven as it is today. And if we're starting over again, maybe we would just do both.
Which means we've been doing this for so long. The industry of television has transformed itself.
Well, and if Duncan does the job I know that he's going to do, then maybe more studios will be knocking down our doors to do TV shows.
It goes back to that point about the number of stories that you guys have available to work with. We get this right, and we're going to do our everything to make sure it turns out well. Then you can go anywhere with this. You can start going anywhere.
All right, this is not my main question, but I'm very interested in the previous gentleman's question about auditioning. My agent would like to know. But I'm wondering when we can pre-order tickets to the movie on our Blattle.net account, and what epic pet we'll get.
A great idea.
Wow, we haven't even got to the place to start thinking about ideas like that. I think I'm going to have to make sure to write that one down and think about that once we get a little bit closer.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, you should be working in our marketing department.
Hi. Earlier I heard Warcraft referred to as a franchise, and it is, but I think at this point it's really hallowed ground. It's an institution, and it's as much ours as it is yours. And the question I need to hear answered to know that this is in good hands is, are you taking this movie as seriously as they took Lord of the Rings?
I can't speak for Peter Jackson. All I can say is, you know, those movies were groundbreaking and took me into a world, you know, in a way that I hadn't seen ever, I think. You know, I mean, it just completely enveloped you in this whole culture and world. And, you know, those were the movies that inspired me and wanted me to be able to do something like this. I mean, I think, you know, my first two films were science fiction. And I think there's been an absolute explosion in what kind of science fiction films are getting made right now. And I think, you know, myself and Neil Blomkamp, when we did District 9 and Moon, you know, right in 2009, science fiction had kind of been not really seen as that opportune a place to actually branch out and tell different kinds of stories. And I think right now, fantasy films have the Lord of the Rings franchise. And that's what people see and think of when they think of fantasy films. And what I really want is to have the opportunity to explode fantasy in the same way that you know, science fiction is now exploded. And I think Peter Jackson has really set the bar as to what fantasy needs to be. Anything we do has to match or beat that.
Hi. I'm sure a few people in the audience has some opinions on this, but stereo conversion versus native. What's your opinion?
I have one eye much better than the other. So 3D films are not something that immediately works great for me. I actually prefer watching the 2D experience. But I've seen some things, you know. But 3D is obviously a massively important draw for some people who really get a lot out of it. I mean, I don't know if you've seen Gravity yet, or if you actually saw that in 3D, but you know, the response to that has been that 3D can work. So, you know, we'll look into it. I think 3D is something that I would hope that we would release in both so that people could choose which one they want. I'm a 2D fan, but I know that there are people out there who really do love 3D as well.
All right, we're almost out of time, so we probably don't have time for one, maybe two questions.
Awesome. All right, so I'm a linguistics major. That's weird hearing myself. All right, so I'm wondering, you guys brought up Avatar, Lord of the Rings, and Game of Thrones, and they all have something in common, that they have fleshed out languages that sort of add more depth to the world. Do you need someone to flesh out Orcish? And if so, when do I start working?
We do have someone who's fleshing out Orcish, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, the job is taken. And he is someone who has worked on some of those things that you mentioned. No, we're in good hands, but there will be, I think, more to that language at the end of the development of this movie than maybe already exists. From the game side of things, and hopefully that will cross filter back to you guys as well if you'd want to use it.
Let's go, Raka.
Kick. All right, last question.
Zug indeed.
Hello, my name is Keaton Savage from Austin, Texas, and I was just wondering, what are you trying to gear this for? Like, what tone and rating? Is it going to be PG-13 to appeal to a much broader audience, or is it going to be R to allow for more stuff to be put into in some way?
I missed the end of that. PG-13. Rating. Oh, about the rating. It's, you know, I think we're going to be probably PG-13. So I think. But when you actually look at the films that have come out lately at PG-13 and what you can do in that, there is a constantly shifting and sliding line as to what is possible. You know, the Batman movies were PG-13. And if you remember the Joker scene with the pencil, that's PG-13. So you can get away with some shit in PG-13.
All right. want to thank all you guys for coming out to the panel, and especially thanking so much that Duncan and Bill is here to share all the information about the movie. And please, all you guys, give them a hand for making all these reveals possible. All right, and wait till next BlizzCon, and hopefully we'll be back showing more.
Movie presentation panel.
That's the one feature I
You're
wasn't
watching BlizzCon 2013, an original DirecTV production since 2008. Level up to DirecTV at directv.com.
Welcome back to BlizzCon Live on DirecTV.
It's Jeff Keighley here with Kat Hunter, and we are over here at the desk. That was the Warcraft Movie panel. Lots of details from Duncan Jones, the director. So, Kat, we finally know a little bit about the movie.
We finally do. I was a little nervous there at the beginning because they came out and weren't saying anything, as I thought they were going to make a liar out of me. But congrats to Rob Pardo, who really pushed them on stage to give details. So. We know that it is an origin story. We know that it's in Eastern Kingdoms and Lothar and Duratan, so I think it's a pretty good start.
All right, a little bit of information there, Kat. I was getting worried at the beginning. They're like, hey, we can't say anything about the movie. It's not, can't talk about marketing it yet.
That's what it looked like.
Some cool stuff. Well, we're excited about that. But now we got much more coming all afternoon here at BlizzCon, including the StarCraft Finals, the Blink-182 concert. But right now we've got a special guest joining us here at the desk, Alex from Diablo. Alex, great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And if you guys have questions for Alex about Diablo, you can send them to us at Jeff Keighley and at Kat Hunter on Twitter, and we'll get them in front of Alex. Are you on Twitter, Alex?
Yes, I am.
What are you on Twitter?
Alex_Mayberry.
You can send them to Alex_Mayberry, but make sure to put Kat and I on it because we got computers and he doesn't. All right, so Alex, it's been a great couple days for Diablo, and you guys made your announcement back at Gamescom in August about the new expansion. So that's is it new content that you're showing here, or similar to what you showed at Gamescom?
No, we have new content here as well. Players can play Act 5, they can play the new Crusader, they can experience the new loot drops, the Loot 2.0 system we've put in place, and what we haven't seen yet that we're showing today is the new adventure mode, which is kind of an open world take on the Diablo universe.
Right. All right, well, people get to play it and on 2 platforms, console and PC. So that's quite an accomplishment. The team is able to do it on both systems at once.
Yes, we're really working hard to get both teams working kind of in conjunction with each other, so that the console isn't lagging behind our PC development. We're finally getting into lockstep with each other on those efforts.
Is there a chance that this could actually come out on console and PC at the same time?
No.
Okay.
We're still not quite there yet, but that's what we're working towards, right?
Eventually. All right, well, very cool. Well, let's head over onto Twitter and see what people have to ask. First question.
I have a couple. Well, let me ask a couple follow-up questions, because we didn't get a chance to see the panel this morning, the gameplay systems, and so there's a potential that there are viewers did not as well. So I wanted to find out if, first of all, if you could tell us a little bit more about the clans and groups feature that's going to be added in Reapers of the Soul.
Sure. We've added the ability to form a clan and to form groups with each other. We want to improve social features and give people the ability to form groups with each other based on the objectives they want to complete in the game. So this is just another pass on our social features to bring that up to a level where people can more easily find each other and play with each other.
Okay, and this will be available exclusively on the PC, correct?
Yes, it's on the PC. I can't really comment about the PS4 side of it, the console side of it. I'm not certain what we're going to do with clans and groups in that regard, but it's definitely on the PC.
Okay. Now, just a couple follow-up questions on Paragon leveling. I know a lot of information came out in Blue Post last week, so it might have already been announced, but one of the questions that has come up a lot is the way that your Paragon points are distributed. So every level, you have another opportunity to level up a category. But Magic Find and Gold Find are competing for, I believe, the 4th category. And so is that going to limit Magic Find and Gold Find leveling abilities through the Paragon system?
Well, you're going to have choices to make, and you have to decide what's more important to you. Do you want to put your points into Magic Find? Do you want to put it into Gold Find? Do you want to up your movement speed? We have the different utility stats that you can put those points into. But we also have, you can put points into your primary stats and your offensive abilities and your defensive abilities. And this is just our way of giving you more control.
Right.
The other thing that's important is that these Paragon points are distributed to all of your characters. So it's not just on the one Paragon character you're playing. When you get that that point, you can spend it with any character that you have.
Right.
So this way, we didn't want you to just focus all of your efforts on a single character. You're putting all that work in to gain those Paragon levels. We want you to be able to enjoy it with any character that you play.
So have you decided what the limitation would be on respecking your Paragon character, for example?
Currently, you can respec at will. You can just reset your points and reallocate them as you want.
So would that give you the ability to basically create a Magic Find character and go out and do your runs and then come back and then respec for adventure mode?
Yes.
Okay, well that's very interesting actually then. Also on Legendary changes, there's a lot of itemization changes, big, huge itemization changes that are being made, right? So if that's coming out with Loot 2.0.
That's right.
And the auction house is closing in March, is there concern on closing down, on changing the value on items bought with cash?
No, our approach to Legendaries is not to replace anything that you currently have. We have upgraded many of the existing Legendaries in the game, but what will happen is you will keep the version you had, and a new version will start dropping that will have different stats on it. So you could potentially find two versions of the same Legendary, the old one and the new updated one.
Gotcha. So if it is in your inventory, it stays as is?
It's not going to change.
Okay, very good information. All right, go ahead.
All right, we got a lot of questions for you on Twitter here, Alex. First one is, this comes from Zushiba, who seems to be sending us a lot of questions today. Why not make a no auction house mode, maybe better loot, instead of getting rid of it altogether? Some of us actually like the auction house.
Sure, and we understand that fact, but really when we looked at what makes a Diablo game, it is all about finding great loot. And we want you to find the best items in the game by playing the game. We want the best items you get to be the items that drop at your feet.
Right.
That's what we're focusing on. And when we look at that philosophy, the auction house, it's contrary to that. It sends people to get items somewhere else besides the game. So by removing the auction house, we can refocus our efforts on the loot that is dropping, how that is paced, and the rarity at which you find things. So for us, it was a hard decision. We put a lot of work into the auction house, but at the end of the day, we decided that removing the auction house was really the best thing for the game, not only today, but in the future and where we want to take it.
It seems that some of the harder core players, specifically the hardcore players, had already migrated over to third-party sites in the community anyways. It had moved away from the auction house. So does your development team plan to basically allow those sites to exist as is, or will Blizzard be trying to combat that business at all?
Well, so we are currently reviewing our trading rules within the game, and we are going to be changing the way trading happens. There's going to be more restrictions in place, and basically the best items in the game, the most powerful items, you won't be able to get from buying, you won't be able to get from trading, you will get from finding them.
How prevalent is account-bound or soul-bound items going to be in the game versus tradable items?
They'll be pretty prevalent, especially with the higher-end items.
Okay, so that basic idea is you're trying to discourage trading at that level for the most part.
It all focuses on the idea that we want you to find your items.
Good way to bring that talking point back around there. Do you have another Twitter question? I've got a bunch that just came in as well.
This one comes from Justin, Random311. He says, can we expect more randomized dungeons in upcoming expansions?
You absolutely can. With the adventure mode, there's an aspect to it called Nephilim Rifts, and as you complete bounties around the world and turn them in for rewards, you will get a keystone that will open a rift. Now, what that does, when you enter the rift, the game will build a random dungeon anywhere from 1 level to 10 levels, and it will pull content from all over the game. So, your first level could be a cave, and then your second level could be the crypt, and your third level could be a Leorix dungeon.
Right.
The reality is you won't know what you're going to get until you walk through the portal. And it's not just the environment itself, but we're changing the look of the environment. So you may end up in the oasis, but instead of that serene moonlight, it might be a hellish red glow, right? And then we have gone back through our art and looked for scenes in environments that we didn't use in the shipping game.
That was awesome.
And we've brought them back in, and we've reconfigured the dungeons to have different layouts, so you'll end up going through them in ways you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we have new monster populations. that pull from all over the game and give you combinations of enemies to fight that you have never seen before, you know, playing together in the game. And so every time you walk through that portal, you don't know where you're going to end up, and you don't know what you're going to fight.
I loved the example that they showed at Gamescom where you had a huge monster in a very small hallway, just to show the randomization that could potentially happen in these rifts.
Well, and you know, it's a pretty deep system, and in those monster populations, we're spending a lot of time making populations that have that are more rare, so you don't. And they can also be, well, thematic. So maybe you're going to go into a dungeon and every creature you fight will be fire-based or poison-based or, you know, large monsters or demons. We can create all sorts of crazy themes, and then we can set them to have really low roll rates. So there are a lot of secret populations in there, and so we want to make it really deep. So as you play through, once in a while, you're going to hit a population that is just insane. And